Our interview partner today is Karsten Hank. He is full professor of sociology at the Institute of Sociology and Social Psychology. Mr. Hank, you are doing a lot of research on gays and lesbians, relationships within families. How much worse is it as a child to grow up with homosexual parents rather than heterosexual parents?
Well, there is indeed great public concern that children being raised by same-sex parents might fare worse than those being raised by heterosexual parents. And this concern is also reflected, for example, in the legislation, making it much more difficult for same-sex couples to adopt a child than for heterosexual couples. But social science research provides no evidence at all, and social science research, meaning sociological research and psychological research, provides no evidence at all that children being raised by same-sex parents fare worse than those being raised by heterosexual parents.
If that is the case, are there any other surprising findings about that topic, maybe even from your own research?
Well, when I started to get interested in gay and lesbian family issues, maybe my first surprise was how little research there was on that topic up to that point in time. In Germany, we're in the lucky situation that there's the German Family Panel, which started with an initial sample of 12,000 respondents, and that was large enough to have a sufficiently large number of observations that we could identify, or that who self-identified themselves as homosexual, so we could do quantitative analyses with these data. And one study I did, we looked at intergenerational relationship quality, comparing gay and lesbian children with heterosexual children. And we were interested in whether the quality of the relationship to their parents was better or worse depending on their sexual orientation. And we virtually found no difference between the two groups.
For the German Family Panel for PERFAM, you ask people questions about the frequency and quality of their sexual intercourse, for example. How can you be sure that the study participants tell you the truth?
We can't be sure that they tell us the truth. But in the end, the respondent never lies, and you only have to interpret her or his answers correctly. Fortunately, we know quite a bit about people's response behaviors. We know that there's social desirability, that people tend to give the answer that they think you expect them to give or that they think is politically correct. We know that males report higher incomes when they're interviewed by females as compared to males. But you can, to some extent, correct for this in your statistical models, accounting, for example, for interviewer sex. In the German Family Panel, when we come to these sensitive questions, we have a different approach. PERFAM interviews are conducted as computer-assisted personal interviews. And when it comes to the questions about sexuality, the interviewer just turns around the laptop and the respondent is asked or supposed to enter the answers himself or herself.
So first, you and your colleagues put a lot of effort in your work, but second, the media or some politicians come along and misunderstand your results. Isn't it a problem?
That's a problem, and at times that's extremely frustrating. If we think about politicians, I think we have to be fair. They have their own interests. They want to be re-elected in the next elections. No reason to complain about that. If you think of a current example, extending working lives till the age of 70, that's nothing anybody is spontaneously happy about, but there are good reasons to extend working lives until the age of 70. And we have to educate, we as scientists have to educate politicians that they realize that in the end, extending the working life till the age of 70 is something that's in the interest of their voters. If we convince the politicians, politicians will hopefully be able to convince their voters. And if we convince journalists, you will inform the public. And in the end, we will hopefully all end up living in a better world.
Mr. Hank, thank you for the interview.
Thanks for having me.